It has been a crazy week across the league. So many rosters changing, game plans changing, and lineups changing. For that, we get to the Domino's pregame headquarters. Morton, Adam, what can you tell us?
Kind of an understatement there, Sam, in terms of it being a crazy week. But what the NFL has done is, people probably have heard, they have changed the protocols going forward for the rest of the year or rest of the season. And that basically means that all fully vaccinated players who are asymptomatic or report no symptoms or are screened for no symptoms, they have a strategic plan here where they will not be tested. There will be some randomness to it. Unvaxxed players, it's the same old thing. You're tested daily. Team facility protocols are tightening up. Opt-outs for players are now allowed by 2 p.m. Monday. That's tomorrow. And not all, but a good majority of the players were in favor of an end of testing. And by the way, for those players who have tested positive this week, just like Aaron Rodgers' case, any player who tests positive, they do not have to test again until after the Super Bowl if they make the playoffs, if they've been a positive test.
And Mort, there were 3 teams this week hit harder than any others. The Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Rams, the Washington football team. But here's the good news for those teams. With their games being pushed back this week, each of those teams is expected to get back players. Baker Mayfield could be cleared as early as today, which would give him a chance to play tomorrow night. The Los Angeles Rams are getting back Odell Beckham Jr., Darrell Henderson Jr., Jalen Ramsey, some key parts for the Tuesday night game. And Washington already has activated Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, and still is hoping to potentially get back maybe even Taylor Heineke. So some of these teams with the pushback of the games will get some added help, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, guys. First and foremost, we're just happy that as far as we know, everybody seems to be okay. Most of these cases seem to be asymptomatic, maybe a sign of good things to come as we're dealing with a more mild version of this virus, but still a lot of fallout. Teddy, when you look around the league right now, where do you think we'll see the biggest impact from this?
I think there are a lot of players that will need reassurances of, we're changing the rules here, we're changing testing schedules here, and I think each of them, these are men that are from 21 years old all the way to 35, 40 years old, so there are different life situations, all right? There was a stage of my career where my wife was pregnant all the time. Okay, we had three boys, boom, 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 and she's pregnant all the time. So what kind of concerns do I have now if I see these rules and all of a sudden it's like, well, is it easier for me to bring it home?
Right.
So it can be real for a lot of people. I played 4 years as a stroke survivor also after my stroke, after my 9th year. So you'd have to consider that. So is there an opt-out option? There is, but you don't get paid. Yeah. Okay, so now it's like, oh man, I only have a certain amount of years to earn my earning capacity too. So these are all the thoughts that are going in my head right now, okay? So football is there also, it's like in the back of my mind, but those are things that I'm thinking initially because just again, in terms of the life situation where I was in the stage of my life, I'd have to consider a lot of things because from what I know, even kids under the age of 5 cannot be vaccinated. So you could be bringing it home to unvaccinated people. So there's a lot of things now for players that have to consider that they're changing rules so they can just finish a season. So that's where I am first. There's a lot of football to be talked about in terms of game planning and all that, and I understand, but that's life first for me, and that's where my mind would be.
Yeah, it's a long-term approach and a long-term vision. I think for the short-term approach and the short-term vision, there are teams who now have, they're sort of at a disadvantage. Adam and Moore talked about it. Las Vegas, Seattle, Philly. Now they have to play. Their game got pushed. They had no issue. So now they are giving their team a new competitive advantage. Instead of playing against Baker Mayfield, instead of backup, now you're playing against Baker Mayfield possibly or something like that. But there's also a saying in quarterback rooms, I think in locker rooms, adjust and improvise. Okay, we were supposed to play on this day. Now we're playing on that day. There's a thing that Pete Carroll would say, Chuck Pagano would say. He would say, okay, so what, now what? Okay, guess what? You don't get to play Saturday, you don't get to play Sunday. Now we're playing on a Tuesday afternoon. So what, now what? What are you going to do about it? And basically, it's going to take leaders in the locker room. Hey, this isn't our normal schedule. So what? Who cares? Well, I'm used to this schedule. So what? Who cares? We got to be ready to play anytime, any place. And that's what this week's going to be like for a lot of football teams, really for six football teams.
Yeah, you got to rely on the professionalism of your football team, certainly. But I don't think we're going to see the effects as much in these games as we will be next weekend. And I think that's where it's going to change. If you're playing Tuesday, how are you going to get game plan specific to play a game on Sunday or in some cases Saturday? So to me, that's it. And what I'm going to expect them to do is, I remember we used to play against Pittsburgh, and Bill Cowher would always do this. If he was on a short week, they would take the exact same game plan and put it to the next week, regardless of the opponent, thinking that, you know what, we're prepared to play that week. We're just going to continue it regardless of the opponent. And you kind of knew it as, you know, if you played against that team. So I'll be curious to see how these teams on a short week, how they approach the next game.
Do any of y'all know when this pandemic will be over? Because I surely don't.
We're not the experts.
And the reason why I asked you that question, because I think as a whole country, a lot of eyes are on the National Football League. We relaxed. We relaxed as a whole country, because I remember last year, starting out the season, everything was under control. But what happened in the offseason? We kind of relaxed. So these new rules, these new protocols that they put in place, starting up the next season, I just hope that they could put something in place that can be sustainable. Because like I said, we just relaxed, man. And I think that just by hearing everything on the news, not even football, sports related, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So I think that just because all eyes are watching the National Football League, I just hope that they could just put something in place for the whole world, the whole country, that can see that we're trying to get this things under wraps. But I think this week showed us how serious this pandemic that we're still in, how serious it is.
It's a really good point,